At Rosie's diner, Jake Morrison mocks the quiet old man in a stained military uniform, laughing with his crew as if service could be erased by mud. The veteran says nothing, just sips his coffee. Then the door opens, and 6 Navy SEALs walk in. One nods toward the old man. That's Master Sergeant Charlie Malister. 3 tours, 2 Purple Hearts. You just mocked a legend. They thought he was a nobody. What they didn't know, he's the reason some of them get to laugh at all. Stick around, because when respect arrives in uniform, shame can't hide behind a leather jacket. Share where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Hit that subscribe button to catch all our. The fluorescent lights of Rosie's diner cast harsh shadows across Jake Morrison's leather jacket as he lounges against the counter feeling invincible. His reflection fragments across the chrome surfaces, young Cocky, the self-appointed king of his small-town domain. The jacket's zipper glints like a weapon as he surveys his kingdom, his crew of 3 flanking him like loyal subjects. The old man in the mud-stained uniform catches Jake Morrison's eye again. Something about the veteran's quiet dignity as he sips his coffee makes Jake's stomach twist, but he drowns the sensation in cruel laughter. "Hey guys, check it out. Guess someone couldn't afford the dry cleaning bill this month." His voice carries deliberately across the diner, drawing snickers from his crew. The veteran, Charlie Malister, as his faded name tape reveals, doesn't flinch. He methodically stirs his coffee, each clink of his spoon against the ceramic cup echoing in the suddenly hushed diner. Jake Morrison's hand unconsciously finds his jacket zipper, fidgeting with it as that uncomfortable feeling resurfaces. "What's wrong? Old-timer cat got your tongue." Jake Morrison's voice cracks slightly on the last word, betraying his growing unease. The fluorescent lights seem to dim as the diner door chimes a sound that will haunt his dreams for years to come. 6 massive figures in crisp naval uniforms fill the doorframe, their collective presence sucking all the oxygen from the room. Jake Morrison's fingers freeze on his zipper as their eyes lock onto him with laser precision. His leather jacket, moments ago, an armor of arrogance, now feels like tissue paper. One of the SEALs steps forward, his movements fluid as mercury. "That's Master Sergeant Charles Malister, son. 3 tours in Vietnam, 2 Purple Hearts, and more courage in his coffee cup than you've shown in your entire life." Jake Morrison's world tilts sideways as he realizes the magnitude of his mistake. His crew melts away from his sides, leaving him exposed. The leather jacket grows heavier with each passing second, weighing him down like chains of his own making. Jake Morrison's voice dies in his throat as Master Sergeant Malister finally looks up, his eyes carrying the weight of battles Jake Morrison couldn't begin to comprehend. The zipper slips from his trembling fingers. Inner reflection. The silence screams in my ears now. Every morning I'd watched my grandfather polish his own service medals with that same quiet dignity. How did I become the kind of person who mocks what I once revered? The leather jacket feels like a costume, and I'm a fraud in my own skin. The diner's security camera blinks steadily in the corner, capturing every excruciating moment. Within hours, vet respect will trend nationwide, with Jake Morrison's face becoming the symbol of disrespect undone by silent dignity. Type now, respect, if you believe every veteran deserves our deepest honor. Will Jake Morrison's empire of arrogance survive this encounter with true courage? The leather jacket that once represented his power now feels like a scarlet letter, marking him for a lesson in humility he never saw coming. The SEALs haven't moved their presence, an immovable wall of judgment. And somewhere in the depths of Jake Morrison's shattering bravado, a terrifying question begins to take root. What happens when the self-proclaimed king faces real warriors? Jake Morrison sat in his usual corner booth at Rosie's diner, fingers drumming restlessly against his coffee cup as unwelcome memories of his father surfaced. The old Marine's hands kept drawing his attention. Strong, weathered things that moved with practiced precision despite their age. Those hands bore the same calluses his father's had shown before walking out 15 years ago, leaving nothing but a hollow ache and a bitter lesson about strength. The diner's ancient coffee machine sputtered and hissed its angry rhythm, matching the growing disquiet in Jake's chest. He'd gathered his friends here to mock the old man's mud-stained uniform, but now each speck of dirt seemed to mock him instead. Charlie Malister, he'd learned the veteran's name from the diner's longtime waitress, Sarah, moved with a quiet dignity that made Jake's designer jacket feel like a child's costume. "Did you hear about the memorial?" Tyler whispered beside him, scrolling through his phone. "The one the old-timer's been maintaining, check this out." The screen showed a local news article. 74-year-old Marine veteran single-handedly maintains Veterans Memorial Park. Each word felt like a physical blow to Jake's chest. The mud. The damn mud suddenly made perfect sense, transforming from a target of ridicule into something sacred. Jake's throat tightened as he remembered his earlier sneering comments. "Look at this guy, couldn't even clean up before getting coffee. Some Marine." The words echoed in his memory, each syllable dripping with ignorance he couldn't take back. His hands shook slightly as he pulled up his own phone, finding more articles about Charlie Malister. 40 years of service. 3 Purple Hearts. Countless lives saved. And here he was, still serving, spending his retirement, maintaining the memorial that honored his fallen brothers and sisters. "You okay, man?" Tyler asked, noticing Jake's unusual silence. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," Jake muttered, watching Charlie methodically stir his coffee. Each movement spoke of discipline, of purpose, everything Jake had rejected when his father left everything he'd tried to destroy in others to mask his own inadequacies. The coffee machine hissed again, and Jake flinched. His supposedly cool leather jacket felt suffocating now, its carefully chosen patches advertising a toughness he'd never earned. He'd spent years building this image, gathering friends who reinforced his shallow world view, leading them in mocking people like Charlie, who possessed the real strength he desperately lacked. A notification popped up on his phone. Someone had recorded their earlier taunting and posted it online. The comments were scathing. Disgraceful treatment of a veteran hero. Who raised these punks? Each word struck deeper than the last, but it was the final comment that broke him. This is what happens when we forget the meaning of true service. Type respect earned if you've ever misjudged someone's worth and lived to regret it. Jake's inner voice, usually so confident, cracked with shame. How many times have I looked at someone's surface and missed the depths beneath? How many heroes have I mocked because I couldn't bear to see the reflection of my own inadequacies in their honor? The mud on his uniform tells stories of dedication I can't comprehend, while my clean jacket hides nothing but emptiness. Sarah approached Charlie's table with a fresh pot of coffee, her usual warm smile tinged with protective concern. "The memorial's looking beautiful, Charlie. My grandfather would have been proud to see how you're keeping their memory alive." Charlie's simple, "Thank you, ma'am," carried more weight than all of Jake's practiced swagger. Jake watched as the veteran's calloused fingers traced the rim of his cup, each movement deliberate, present, purposeful, everything Jake had pretended to be, but never achieved. The diner's door chimed as more customers entered. Jake noticed how Charlie subtly straightened eyes scanning exits and angles, habits burned into muscle memory through decades of service. The same service Jake had mocked barely an hour ago. His phone buzzed again. The video was gaining traction, accompanied by a growing wave of outrage. Jake Morrison, who had spent years building his reputation as the untouchable leader of his social circle, watched as that carefully constructed image began to crumble under the weight of truth. The coffee in his cup had gone cold bitter, like the realization spreading through his chest. His friend's continued snickers suddenly sounded hollow, childish against the profound silence emanating from Charlie's corner of the diner. A silence that spoke volumes about dignity service and the kind of strength that didn't need patches or poses to prove itself. Jake's fingers traced his jacket's meaningless decorations, each one now feeling like a testament to his ignorance. The real medals, the ones that actually meant something, rested unseen beneath Charlie's mud-stained uniform, earned through sacrifice rather than purchased for show. The morning light streaming through Rosie's windows caught the silver in Charlie's hair, creating a brief halo effect that made Jake's chest tighten with shame. How many dawns had this man seen from a foxhole? How many brothers had he lost? How many stories lay buried beneath that quiet exterior that Jake had so carelessly dismissed? Jake Morrison's knees felt weak as the truth about Charlie Malister's service record echoed through Rosie's diner. The leather jacket that had made Jake Morrison feel invincible moments ago now felt like a 1,000-pound weight across his shoulders. Each word from the SEALs' mouths stripped away another layer of Jake Morrison's carefully constructed facade of superiority. Navy Cross recipient. One SEAL stated his voice, carrying the weight of history. Jake Morrison's fingers traced the studs on his jacket nervously, the metal suddenly cold against his skin. The morning sun streaming through the diner's windows caught the studs, casting accusing shadows that danced across the worn linoleum floor. Jake Morrison watched in mounting horror as phones emerged from pockets and purses, their camera lenses trained on his increasingly pale face. The quiet whir of recording devices filled the air like angry whispers. Charlie Malister sat at his booth, his mud-stained uniform now seeming to Jake Morrison like a badge of honor, rather than an object of ridicule. The clink of Charlie's coffee cup against his saucer made Jake Morrison flinch. Each sound felt like judgment being passed, a metallic reminder of his monumental mistake. Jake Morrison's throat constricted as he saw his own sneering face appear on someone's phone screen already being shared with captions that made his stomach turn. "Boss, veteran respect is trending." Jake, one of his former friends, whispered, deliberately stepping away from him. "They're sharing your video everywhere." Jake Morrison watched as his friend's phone displayed the growing view count, 50,000 tones on 100,000 toners. The numbers climbed like his mounting dread. The leather jacket that had been Jake Morrison's armor now felt like a costume, a child's attempt at toughness. His fingers fumbled with the zipper, desperate to shed this symbol of his arrogance. The studs that had once seemed cool now looked gaudy and infantile compared to the quiet dignity of Charlie Malister's mud-stained uniform. "Sir." Jake Morrison managed to croak toward Charlie, but the words died in his throat as another SEAL began reading from his phone. Combat missions, lives saved, medals earned. Each achievement landed like a blow to Jake Morrison's chest, making his previous mockery feel like acid in his mouth. The diner's regular breakfast clatter had ceased entirely. Jake Morrison stood alone in a bubble of shame, aware that every eye was fixed on him. Every phone was documenting his downfall. His own reflection in the diner's window showed a stranger, a small, mean person he barely recognized. Type respect if you believe in honoring our veterans. Someone called out, followed by the sound of dozens of phones tapping out messages of support for Charlie. Jake Morrison watched his reputation dissolve in real time as the hashtag #MorrisonShame began climbing Twitter's trending list. The leather jacket's studs caught the light one final time as Jake Morrison slumped against the counter, the weight of his actions crushing whatever bravado remained. The quiet dignity of Charlie Malister's continued silence spoke volumes more than Jake Morrison's earlier cruel laughter ever had. From Jake Morrison's perspective, I stand frozen at Rosie's diner, the familiar weight of my leather jacket suddenly feeling like armor I no longer deserve. The SEAL's presence fills the room with an authority that strips away every ounce of my false bravado. My fingers trace the jacket's worn collar, the same jacket I wore while mocking Charlie Malister just hours ago. The ceiling fan's steady rhythm matches my heartbeat as I watch Charlie sitting there, his dignity intact despite our cruelty. The mud on his uniform that we'd ridiculed now seems to shine like badges of honor. One of the SEALs catches my eye, his silent stare carrying the weight of 1,000 battles. This isn't who I want to be anymore. I whisper more to myself than anyone else. My hands shake as I peel off my jacket, each movement feeling like shedding a layer of arrogance. The leather makes a soft thud as it lands on an empty chair, a sound that echoes the fall of my old self. Walking to Charlie's table feels like crossing a battlefield. Each step strips away another piece of my facade. The diner falls silent, save for the hypnotic whir of the ceiling fan above. My throat tightens as I stand before him, this man who's seen more courage in one day of service than I've shown in my entire life. Mr. Malister. My voice cracks. I was wrong. So wrong. The words tumble out clumsy but sincere. I'd like to volunteer at the Memorial Park. Learn from men like you, if you'll let me. Someone's phone camera clicks, the sound piercing the silence like a gunshot. I don't care. For once, I hope they're recording. Let them capture this moment when Jake Morrison finally chose dignity over dominance. My crew shifts behind me. I hear Tommy's boots scuff the floor, then Maria's sharp intake of breath. One by one, they step forward, their own apologies mixing with mine. The rebellion we'd prided ourselves on transforms into something else. Something that feels like respect. A notification chimes. Someone's posted the video. Veterans' dignity flashes across a screen, and for the first time, I hope something I'm involved in goes viral. Not for fame, but for change. Have you ever faced a moment that made you completely rethink who you are? Share this if you believe in second chances. Veterans' dignity. The ceiling fan continues its steady rhythm, marking the moments between who I was and who I'm choosing to become. Charlie Malister looks at me, his eyes holding not contempt, but something that feels like hope. And in that moment, I realize that sometimes the bravest rebellion isn't against others. It's against your own worst self. My leather jacket remains draped over the chair, a relic of the person I no longer want to be. Tomorrow I'll be at Memorial Park, not to mock, but to learn. The diner's atmosphere has shifted, the air thick with transformation. And me, I'm finally standing on the right side of dignity. Jake Morrison stands at the granite wall of the Memorial Park, his calloused hands tracing the names etched in stone. A week ago, he would have scoffed at such sentimentality. Now each name feels like a weight on his conscience, a reminder of his monumental mistake at Rosie's diner. The autumn wind carries the rhythmic scratch of his rake against fallen leaves, a sound so different from his mocking laughter that had echoed through the diner. Jake Morrison's designer leather jacket, once his armor of arrogance, now hangs in his closet like a museum piece of his former self. His work clothes, plain, honest, covered in dirt, feel more authentic than anything he's ever worn. Each name has a story. Charlie's voice carries over the rustling leaves. Jake Morrison's throat tightens as the veteran approaches, no trace of judgment in those weathered eyes. The same eyes he'd tried to humiliate just days ago. The mud, Jake Morrison whispers, looking down at his work boots caked in earth from tending the memorial gardens. It's different now. Before I thought it made you less. Now, his voice catches. Now I understand it's a mark of service. The viral video of his confrontation with Charlie plays on loop in his mind. Morrison's mistake still trending, his actions preserved forever online. But the comments section has begun to shift, noting his daily presence at the memorial, working alongside the man he once mocked. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit when you're wrong. Jake Morrison says, his voice carrying across the quiet park. I thought strength was about dominance, about making others feel small. Charlie and those SEALs taught me real strength lies in dignity, in service, in lifting others up. A school group passes by their young eyes, taking in the sight of Jake Morrison, the same man from the viral video, now maintaining the memorial grounds alongside Charlie. Their teacher whispers something, and several students pull out their phones, but this time Jake Morrison doesn't pose or preen. He simply continues his work, each rake, stroke a small act of redemption. The jacket. Jake Morrison reflects, pausing to wipe sweat from his brow. I kept it as a reminder, not of who I was, but of how far we can fall when we forget our humanity, and how far we can climb when we remember it. Charlie approaches with 2 bottles of water, offering one without a word. Jake Morrison accepts it with a quiet, "Thank you," words that mean more now than they ever had before. On type transformed. If you've ever learned the hard way about real strength. Jake Morrison says to his latest video update, his voice steady with newfound humility. Share this if you believe in second chances. The sun sets over the memorial park, casting long shadows across the monuments. Jake Morrison's silhouette merges with Charlie's as they continue their work, 2 figures united in purpose, where once they stood divided by ignorance. The mud on his boots catches the fading light, no longer a mark of shame, but a badge of honor in his journey from arrogance to understanding. The greatest battles, Jake Morrison concludes, echoing Charlie's wisdom, aren't won with fists or words, but with the courage to change. He looks directly into the camera of his final update, his transformation complete. What's your story of change? Share it below. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is admit we were wrong and work to make it right.